Today is a very good one, and I'm happy to have been afforded a brief opportunity to be part of it. Last time we held a meeting with the staff of the Inland Revenue, we had in fact congregated in this very building, and none would have thought that today, this beautiful space, which now will be called the home of the Inland Revenue, would eventuate today. So I want to wish the staff, near 100 plus, I would presume. Mr. Gibbs said we had 150 between St. Kitts and Nevis at the two departments. But I want to congratulate you and now having what is truly your brand new own home. Hitherto you shared space with a number of other government departments. This building is intended principally for use by the Inland Revenue Department. It certainly looks lovelier, and it certainly is more spacious, and it looks more customer friendly than the one you had next door. The overcrowding which customers would experience from time to time would no longer hold. So let's give ourselves a round of applause for the teamwork that led to this new building. I want to recognize the Minister of Tourism also. One U.S. Supreme Court justice said, and I quote, "The taxes are what we pay for a civilized society." Oliver Wendell Holmes, a former Supreme Court justice, said, and I quote, "Taxes are what we pay for a civilized society." End of quote. Reflect upon that for a moment, and you get in part why the Controller of Customs was encouraging each of us to comply with the tax laws as they relate to us, because taxes are what we pay and perhaps should more willingly pay to ensure that St. Kitts and Nevis remains a civilized country, which each one endeavoring and each one achieving in accordance with our prosperity agenda. What are the essence of this civilized society which the Supreme Court Justice wants us to ponder upon? I believe that is an important starting point about all the business of taxation. The only entity that can tax is the state, and the only way taxes can be effected are by decree in some states or through parliamentary processes in democratic states like our own. We want a good life. And for us in westernized societies, the good life is what we see from day to day. The good life is what we aspire to. The good life is about a country where there is inclusive and rapid growth, providing adequate resources to meet the reasonable expectations of our people. An economy that is growing is always better than one that is in negative growth. Because when the economy grows, it takes us from point A to point B, C, or D. When the economy declines, we go down in the hole. And that is one way of looking at it. And then we have to try and find the pathway back up. The civilized society of which we are about must be one in which law and order is being maintained by the legitimate institutions of the states. And these are the police, these are our prisons, these are our defense force, these are our customs and excise, etc., and of course the judiciary. In the civilized society, we resort to the justice system to enforce our rights, both against the state and against other individuals to the extent we think they are infringed. And how are we going to maintain the institution? It is through taxes. So for better or for worse, taxes will always be with us. And the only consideration which may be had would be whether the taxes are fair, whether they are too high or they are too low, and what is the consequence for the broader development of the country. Without healthy collections by the revenue collecting agencies of the states, the state of which inland revenue is one of the most important ones, we certainly would not be able to finance education. We certainly would not be able to increase the budget, which has tripled with respect to national security. We certainly would not be able to add to the CCTV program, and we certainly would not be able to provide the vehicles at the roundabout at strategic intersections of Basseterre and the country. Without taxes, there would be no $30 million to put in a government employee property ownership program to allow you and someone that you know to be able, perhaps for the first time, to begin the property ownership and wealth creation at the most affordable rate ever in the history of the country at 5%. Without your taxes, the improvements in the road would not happen. And the program we have just launched to begin, as it were, to resurface the island main road from Connery going northeast and from Kamsatink and the other side west going all around, giving the country for the first time perhaps in the last 15, 20 years, a newly resurfaced island main road. That would not have happened had there not been tax resources with which to do so. Without your taxes, the program which we have directed the Minister of Public Infrastructure to start soonest with respect to roads in a number of communities or projects, some 69 of them were set up, established, lots were allocated, and no infrastructure provided. The cost of that is in the region of over $70 million. And this administration is prepared in a phased way to address that. In this regard, we have provided 14 million of tax revenues to assist with this program. Without higher and effective compliance of taxes, we couldn't speak of the build-out of the East Terminal, bus terminal, that is now taking place to help all those who travel from Sadlers and Tabernacle and Keon and elsewhere into Basseterre and out of Basseterre. The second cruise pair, even the health center of Tabernacle, could not have started without there being robust revenues. And we could go on and on, identify what it is we want in this civilized society. What are the essential elements of people being able to go about their lives, doing the things, getting the support, the institutional support that makes their lives easier and better. And all of them in the end, to the extent that it becomes a responsibility of the state, would require that our people be better at paying their due taxes on time. And that is why the compliance figures referenced by the Comptroller of Customs are trending in a good direction, and we ought to give him and his staff another round of applause. I want also to commend them because since taking office, we have witnessed over the period 2014 to 2017 a very significant jump in the tax collections of the country. The largest collection by the Inland Revenue Department occurred in 2015 when they collected $241,200,000. So let's throw away 200,000 and call it 241 million. Give them a round of applause. Last year, 2017, the revenue collection at the Inland Revenue Department was $239 million. Again, let's give them a round of applause. There are several tax heads which are the job of the Inland Revenue Department to pursue: property tax collections, stamp duties, and we could go on and on. The smaller things like the licenses which you pay, all those are the responsibility of the Inland Revenue Department. I am happy that during the course of my administration's life, every year, the collection has been higher than any other year prior to us. 2014 was the largest year of collections hitherto, and at that time it was 217 million. That is as high as it got up to the end of 2014. Every year after 2014, we have done better than 217 million. And so again, I want the staff to know how deeply appreciative we are. And we hope that the model of improved compliance that we see here at Inland Revenue will be reflected in the other revenue departments, the Accountant General, our CIU, and so on, and even with respect to the development assistance. The aim of the government has been to ensure that our federation becomes the best place to live, to work, and for people to visit and do business. Our policies have seen a major investment in housing. We spoke about that a while ago, about the housing program now being implemented by the National Housing Corporation, where 300 plus housing units are to be delivered. And under the government workers property ownership program, where 30 million has been earmarked. And through the other initiative, such as FIRST, the First Time Home Owners Program, the government is attempting to ensure that more persons are able to own a home which they can call their own. We have seen tremendous improvement in the health center. The construction, for example, of a brand new Mary Charles Hospital, the delivery of the oncology unit at the JNF, the build out of the mental health day treatment facilities. All these are important additions to the efficacy of health delivery in our country. And we could go on and on about the successes of the country in that regard. Of course, the government wants to have a fair tax system. We want to have a tax system that is progressive. We want to ensure that those who can better carry the burden of tax servicing carry it, and those who ought to be spared are spared. The poor, for example, must never be overtaxed and should where possible be protected. And we see that message come out everywhere. That is why one of the first fiscal intervention of the Team Unity administration was to remove VAT from food, for medicines, etc., funeral expenses, to save the ordinary folks of St. Kitts and Nevis the burden of 17% add-on to their costs of living. Because we put a premium on education, and we know how this is the great equalizer within our society, we ensure that we save the ordinary people the burden of the 17% VAT on educational supplies. So we are wanting to have a fair tax system, and we want this tax system to be progressive. And always there are some who fall through the cracks, that is, they become delinquent, but there must be consequences for delinquency. We have started this year, or this month, an amnesty with respect to property taxes. The Comptroller of Inland Revenue made reference to that. We hope that people will take the opportunity to make good on their non-compliance with respect to their taxes, especially because we are able to show where the tax dollar is going. It is going to develop the country. It's going to our roads. It's going into health infrastructure. It's going in our stadiums. It's going to assist, as we are doing now, hundreds of people all over the country to get their roofs repaired before the arrival, God forbid they come, of any hurricanes this year. That is what the people's money is being doing. What are our expectations for the future? That we certainly can reposition the Inland Revenue Department to be perceived as perhaps the most friendly and the most modern of government's department. If perchance the Comptroller is right that you are the most inquired into department, you're the one that receives the most queries and interaction from the public, their experience here must become the emblem of what they would want to expect from all government departments. Kind and polite and responsive service, knowledgeable people at the front, in the center, and at the back of the operation. Persons who not only say it can't be done, but who can explain why it can't be done and what other options are available to our people. We want an Inland Revenue Department that provides improved service. Excellence must always be where we set our eyes, and we work hard to ensure that we can achieve excellence. And we see excellence not as a destination, not as an endpoint, but one which evolves over time. It is a journey. So even today, as we are doing a very good job, as we are approximating excellence, tomorrow may come with new challenges and new expectations to which we have to respond to. Of course, we are expecting that at this new building, because of the improved accessibility to everyone, we are going to have more support and more services could be proffered to the people. And we want to ensure, as I said, when they come, they find the department ready to do business. We want to see some refinement in the work here. And I know our Inland Revenue Department, as our customs and excise, have been leading the way in terms of technology solutions. But there certainly is still more work to be done here, and in particular, to lead, to educate, to instruct, and to encourage the clients of the department to embrace the technology. We need then 21st century solutions to the problems which now exist. And so we are hoping to see the department focusing more and re-examining its operations to improve its efficiency as a tax collecting agency, making available its procedures, processes, etc. online, so that anyone who wants to know can learn about the department. We want to see more public education. Sometimes we take it for granted that people know. We've been there for all this long time. Everyone knows about us. Truth is, still very few know what you do here, other than if they come to pay perhaps their licenses from time to time. So you have to be out there in the public domain, utilizing, working for you, utilizing the call-in programs. So more of what you do can be understood and the compliance can come more quickly. The department, of course, has to be prepared to take the requisite actions to ensure strong compliance. I want to end by again commending the department to encourage it to aim high, to become a model as a tax collecting agency, to be state of the art in terms of its application of solutions to meet the problems that are there, and to really make the people of St. Kitts and Nevis feel encouraged in doing the right thing, in paying their taxes, in making their contribution to the good life which all of us require, and to understand what Wendell Holmes outlined, that taxes are what we pay for a civilized society. I find that to be so profound that perhaps the Inland Revenue Department should have it somewhere there, so that when people come, they think about it. This is what the judge said. This was a Supreme Court justice making this fundamentally profound statement of reality. Taxes are what we pay for a civilized society. And isn't it a civilized society that we always want to maintain? Isn't it that we always want our roads to be well done? And whenever electricity goes, we are the first to call power station when our lights will come back. We have to be able to connect those two, because adequate public infrastructure certainly helps to maintain that civilized view of the nation state. But taxes are what we must pay to maintain that. Thank you all very much. May the Inland Revenue's collection be bountiful, and may the collections for business and individual be bountiful, so that this country, which my team and I aim to make the most sought after destination for people to come, to work, to live and to play, always know that it is going on a journey for prosperity. We don't have to look back, perhaps like Lot's wife. We must look forward, doing what we can and what we must to preserve St. Kitts and Nevis as a most civilized society. May God bless us all. I thank you.
Stay up to date with news, programs, and activities of the government with SKNIS. Like us on Facebook. Listen to us on SoundCloud. Follow us on Twitter. And watch our videos on YouTube. Connect with us today. SKNIS, St. Kitts and Nevis Information Service.